Good afternoon and welcome to the May Ordinary Council meeting. Item 1, acknowledgement. We, Greater Shepparton City Council, acknowledge the Yorta Yorta peoples of the land which now comprises Greater Shepparton. We pay our respect to their tribal elders, we celebrate their continuing culture and we acknowledge the memory of their ancestors. Item 2, privacy notice. Public meeting is being streamed live via our Facebook page and made available for public access on our website along with the official minutes of this meeting. All care is taken to maintain your privacy. However, as a visitor in the public gallery, it is assumed that your consent is given in the event that your image is broadcast to the public. It is also assumed that your consent is given to the use and disclosure of any information that you share at the meeting, including personal or sensitive information, to any person who accesses those recordings or minutes. Item 3, governance principles. Council considers that the recommendations contained in this agenda gives effect to the overarching governance principles stated in section 9.2 of the Local Government Act 2020. These principles are as followed. Councillors, they're listed 1 to 9 on page 6 of the agenda. Item 4, apologies. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward to the motion, please? Yes, Councillor Song.
Thank you, Mayor Sully. I move that the apology for Councillor Threlfall and Councillor Wickham be noted and a leave of absence be granted.
Thank you, Councillor Summer. Can I have Councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Schubert. Councillors all in favour? Motion carried. Item 5, declaration of conflict of interest. Councillors, do we have any conflicts this afternoon? No, very good. Item 6, confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. Are there any minutes of the previous meeting opposed? No. Can I have a councillor please move that then? Thanks.
I move that the minutes of the 22nd April 2025 council meeting as circulated be confirmed.
Can I have a councillor second that motion, please?
Second that, Mayor Sully.
Councillors all in favour? Motion carried. Item 7, public question time, nil received. Item 8, petitions, nil received. Councillors, over the page to page 8, item 9.1, Sports Hall of Fame nominations policy and 2025 inductees. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sully. I'd like to put forward the following recommendation: that the Council 1, adopt the Sports Hall of Fame nominations policy as attached, and 2, endorse the Sports Hall of Fame 2025 inductees as attached.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Can I have a seconder?
I'll second that, Mayor Sully.
Ready. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Look, thank you, Mayor Sully. Very privileged to be actually on that particular advisory committee that's put this forward. Being the chair of the committee, there's some certainly sporting luminaries that are on there, and people have done an awful lot in our community. Don Kilgour, Margot Costellinen, Dennis Myers, Tyler Marr, Peter Holland, Tanya Phillips, and a representative from Valley Sports, which is the CEO at the moment, Megan Carr. Terrific committee, and they've worked really hard at going through the nomination process, but also the new nominations for the inductees. For those who don't know, the Sports Hall of Fame features 3 levels of recognition, which is the Hall of Fame, the Honour Roll and the Junior Honour Roll. Induction ceremonies have been held regularly since its inception, with the induction ceremonies held in 2017, 2019 and 2022. The Hall of Fame nominations policy outlines the criteria for eligibility, focusing on local regions, residency, participation and contributions to the sport. Integrity and sportsmanship are also key considerations. The committee have proposed some minor changes to the Sports Hall of Fame nominations policy that aim to clarify the nomination and the induction process. The committee, in conjunction with the council, are planning for the next induction ceremony to be held in August this year, and the committee have recommended 11 nominees for the induction process, which is the Hall of Fame, the Honour Roll and the Junior Honour Roll. Just bearing in note that back in 2017 there were 27 inductees for the initial one, 2019 there was 23 inductees, and in 2022 we had 26 inductees. We've probably got to the stage where a lot of the people that would have been nominated have been nominated now, and so it's held pretty much nearly every 4 years in order to go from a cyclic process of the Olympic Games, perhaps even the Commonwealth Games in the interim period, so people who have represented Australia may be caught up in the next lot of inductions, etc. But as we've gone on, there's been probably less and less because we've probably recognised the ones that have met the criteria so far. Just to mention, we're covering sports of soccer, show jumping, golf, netball, cricket, cycling and speedway riding as well in this next lot of inductions. The names are listed there. They'll be published throughout the coming weeks in the lead up to the induction through the Shepparton News, and we thank them very much for their contribution over many years in promoting this particular event, but also the whole Hall of Fame. And of note, I will make one that there will be, as there has been in other years, a posthumous one of Val Barras, who passed away earlier this year. So our condolences to the family there, but I'm sure certainly should be well represented come on the night.
Councillor Eddie, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor Sullivan.
Councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Very good, councillors, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried unopposed. Item 10.1 on page 13, Chief Executive Officer Employment and Remuneration Committee approval of independent committee member. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I have someone put that forward as a motion, please? Councillor Schubert.
Yes, I move the recommendation that the council approve David Prius to be the independent member of the CEO Employment and Remuneration Committee.
Schubert, can I have councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Brophy.
I'll second that motion, Ms. Farley.
Thank you. Councillor Schubert, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, look, sections 45 of the Local Government Act requires council to have a formal policy regarding the employment and remuneration of the Chief Executive Officer. This policy was initially approved by council at the ordinary council meeting on the 17th of August 2021. The policy details the establishment of a CEO Employment and Remuneration Committee to deal with all factors relating to the recruitment and remuneration, performance reviews and termination or reappointment of the Chief Executive Officer, which we hope doesn't happen in the short term, of Greater Shepparton City Council. The committee consists of the Mayor, Deputy Mayor, 2 councils and independent panel member, and David Priest has done it previously and he's very, very willing to do it again. He will be assisting us to regularly assess the CEO's performance against any agreed key performance indicators and achievement of strategic objectives, and help us perform a formal annual performance review. Thank you, Mayor Sullivan.
Schubert. Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Ms. Farley. Just reiterating what Councillor Schubert has said. I won't go through the process or what we're about, but independent panel member David Priest. I've worked with David previously the last term. He's got an excellent resume, very solid experience in this particular space. He knows not only our council, but he also knows the region pretty well. He's certainly unbiased or any leanings in that way, and very independent, and I think he is a superb choice.
Very good, Councillor Brophy. Any councillors like to speak against the recommendation? Any councillors like to speak for the recommendation? Okay, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried unopposed. Page 16, item 10.2, Trust of Nature Conservation Covenant Policy. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please? Councillor Summer.
Thank you, Ms. Farley. Happy to move that the council adopt the Trust for Nature Conservation Covenant Policy as attached.
Thank you. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Akers. Councillor Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Ms. Farley. The purpose of this policy is to work with property owners who want to permanently protect and conserve private land that holds natural, cultural or scientific value. The covenant applies a rating rebate for eligible properties and requires the owner to maintain the health of habitat on the property, and that will ensure it's a great home for Victoria's native plants and animals. The covenant is not required to cover the entire parcel of land that's registered to a title. It only applies to the portion of the land that's covered by a conservation covenant. So I'm imagining some property owners might want to work together so they could create corridors of habitat. Considering how much natural land we've lost, I think this is a really good step in the right direction.
Councillor Akers, would you like to speak to the motion?
Well, thanks, Mayor Sarley. No, I endorse what Councillor Summer has said, and I mean, landholders wanting to undertake this sort of work, it's a bit of a challenge to work out what you've got to do to return land to its natural state, and this sets out some direction in that area and shows where council will give some assistance. So I endorse the policy and we should be congratulated on doing it.
Thank you, councillor Akers. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Councillors like to speak for the motion? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried on. Page 19, item 10.3, rates rebate for retail land occupied by charitable organisations. There is a recommendation. Can I have someone put that forward as a motion, please?
I'm happy to do that.
Councillor Schubert, thank you.
Move the recommendation that the council adopt the rates rebate for retail land occupied by charitable organisations policy as attached.
Thank you, councillor Schubert. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Brophy.
I'll second that motion.
Councillor Schubert, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, very briefly, thank you, Mayor Saley. The rates rebate for retail land occupied by charitable organisations policy, it simply recognises property that is being operated by a charitable organisation and being used for the retail sale of goods where the proceeds are used to fund their charitable activities. And what comes first and foremost to mind is organisations such as Food Share that have sort of got some funds refunded to them because of this particular policy. So I say sort of well done the council.
Councillor Schubert, councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to that motion?
Just very briefly, Mayor Saleh, to say that councillor Schubert's right on the money there. It's the charitable organisations that are local, that are really turning anything that they make from a retail perspective back into the charitable activities back within the community. So what they're getting from the community, they're giving back to the community, and I think this makes perfect sense.
Thank you, councillor Brophy. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Go to councillor Summer.
Thank you. In the report, I'm reading it, the different ways you could be eligible for this rebate. So providing food, clothing and essential services to the people who are in need, working towards reducing poverty, offering assistance in emergency situations and crisis intervention. And you can get 50% rebate if that is your business, including the municipal charge. We've only had 8 applications to date that have been received and approved, and that totals just over $21,000. So it's not going to break our budget by putting this through, but it definitely has bang for buck when you consider all of these operational expenses that could be better used out in the community.
Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? No, we'll now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried on opposed. Councillors, page 22, item 10.4, election report for the 2024 local government election. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Saleh. I put forward the recommendation that the council receive and note the Greater Shepparton City Council 2024 local government election report as attached.
Councillor Brophy, can I have a councillor second that motion?
Thank you, Mayor Saley.
Councillor Schubert. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Saleh. Look, it's in accordance to the regulation under the local government regulations of 2020 that a report be compiled. Really, it is, looking through it, it's a historical document or report on what the process was, the timeline, the results, the administration side of things, and also the ward structure, which was the first for this particular combined council. So there was a lot in the report to read, all factual about how it played out. It'll be certainly a document that people can look back on in time. What I did notice out of that was that, congratulations to the residents of Greater Shepparton, that there was a very low informal voting rate, which was much lower than in previous elections, which may be partly due to the actual ward structure, given the fact that you may only be selecting, 3 or 4 particular candidates as opposed to, say, 29 across the board. But either way, it's a good report and something if you want to have some bedtime reading.
No doubt. Thank you, councillor Brophy. Councillor Schubert, would you like?
Yes, look, this report's been compiled in accordance with Regulation 83 of the Local Government Electoral Regulations 2020. The Victoria Electoral Commission, VEC, must prepare a report to the Chief Executive Officer on the conduct of the local government elections within a period of 6 months after the election day, which we've met. We've done very well. It's a very comprehensive report, and I've read it page by page, and it was very, very helpful to understand what actually happened in the Greater Shepparton City Council elections. Thank you, Mayor Sully.
So Schubert, any councillors like to speak against the recommendation? No? Any councillors like to speak for? Very good. We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Over the page, item 10.5, contracts awarded under delegation, April 2025. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please?
Thank you. I'll move that the council, 1, note that no contracts were awarded under delegation pursuant to a formal procurement process for the reporting period, and 2, note the request for tender advertised but not yet awarded.
Councillor Spence. Councillor second that motion, please. Councillor Brophy. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, there's not much to say this month. Again, they come to, this particular report comes to council each month, which is good transparency and it's good for it to be publicly available for the community. But the also reality is that we are approaching the end of the financial year, and because of the timing of our budget process, it means that we have awarded the majority, if not all, of our contracts for this financial year, and it's now a matter of getting that work done before June 30. So this report doesn't have a lot to reflect. It means we're out there doing the work, and I expect that once a new budget is awarded, the next sort of projects and tenders will start to hit the reports again. So very quiet this month, but happy to approve.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Councillor Brophy.
Just reiterating what Councillor Spinks said, it is a cyclic thing, so this time of the year, there's very little new tenders going out there. A lot of them, so it's sort of at the end of contracts actually being done. So if you're out and about, you do see a lot of roadworks that are being done at the moment. Their contracts that have been awarded throughout the year. So there's nothing new in that. It's about, the legalities, and of course, once a new budget's approved, then away we go again.
Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Councillors like to speak for the motion? Go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillor, page 25, item 10.6, alteration to council meeting schedule. There is a recommendation. Would a councillor like to put that forward as a motion, please?
I can put that forward, Mayor Sully.
Councillor Reddy.
The recommendation is that the 24 June 2025 scheduled council meeting be rescheduled to 11 AM on Monday, 23rd of June 2025, due to the unavailability of the Mayor and Chief Executive Officer.
Councillor Reddy. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please?
I'll second that motion.
Councillor Reddy, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Councillor Reddy. Councillor Spinks.
Just very briefly, just to say, we wouldn't normally move a meeting, though we do, of course, appreciate the Mayor and CEO being here for a meeting. But the June council meeting will, of course, be a quite important one, with our first budget being approved as a group. So it is important that hopefully all of us will be in attendance, and we're all able to make the change. So very willing to move at this one time.
Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Councillors like to speak for the motion? It would be remiss of me to make some comments to acknowledge and appreciate the support of my fellow councillors in approving what is arguably the most important agenda OCM, being the June OCM, where we usually endorse our budget amongst many other important matters. The reason why it's coming forward to Monday is to allow Fiona and I to represent Greater Shepparton City Council at the Australian Local Government Association conference in Canberra during that week. So thank you for the support, councillors, and we look forward to resolving all matters in June, albeit a day early, but thank you for that support. If there's nothing further, councillors, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Item 10.7 on page 27, April 2025 monthly financial report. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward? Motion, please. Councillor Akers.
I'm happy to move that council note the April 25 monthly financial report is attached.
Thank you. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Spinks.
Second that motion.
Councillor Akers, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Ms Harley. Well, the report represents the April 25 financial performance for the year 24-25 financial year compared to the 25 adopted a budget. The year-to-date actual adjusted underlying result is a surplus of 18.75 million, which is 768,000 or 4% greater than the year-to-date Q3 forecast review. As the financial year progresses, council is projecting a full-year adjusted underlying deficit of 4.55 million. The improvement to the projected full-year position compared to the adopted budget and Q3 forecast review is mostly due to non-recurrent insurance claims, income from property damage relating to the October 22 flood event and the March 23 storm event, as well as some additional civil works developer contributions. The council has delivered 29.51 million of the 24-25 capital works program to date, with the full year forecast being 49.69 million. Now this is 112,000 decrease compared to the Q3 forecast, and we're well aware that we've got a big quarter underway, but we're confident that we can spend that. The decrease is mostly due to a reduction in information technology networking project, which thankfully a tender came in under budget, so that's a good thing to see. We've adopted a liquidity ratio, that's assets as a percentage of the current liabilities, as a further measure of our financial sustainability. So the 24-25 projected full year liquidity results expected to be about 185%, which is a good result. But ultimately, I think the budget's in a good position. We've obviously got some projects that we're not going to complete this year and have moved forward into the next financial year, but it's largely around GB Link and a couple of others, but a good position.
Councillor Akers, Councillor Spinks.
Just to thank Councillor Akers, a moment of appreciation. I thank Councillor Akers for unofficially volunteering to approve the finance motion every is much appreciated because it's a bit of a bulky one. But no, I just very much second that the budget, the finances are tracking well. It's good to have this oversight each month, and that apart from a couple of very large capital items that are being rebudgeted to the next financial year for good reason, which throws out the numbers a little bit, everything is tracking well, and there's a lot to be delivered in the next couple of months, but that is to be expected, so happy to approve.
Very good, thank you, Councillor Spinks. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Speak for the motion? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Page 30, item 10.8, S5, instrument of delegation by council to the Chief Executive Officer, lifting the report from the table. There is a recommendation. Can I have councillor move that, please? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Saleh. Recommendation that the council resolve to lift the matter from the table.
Can I have councillor second that motion, please?
Second that, Mayor Saleh.
Councillor Eddie. Councillors all in favour? Carried. Over the page, 10.9, S5, instrument of delegation by council to the Chief Executive Officer. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please? Councillor Summer.
Thank you, Ms. Saleh. I will move the recommendation as printed on page 31 of the agenda.
Councillor second that motion, please. Councillor Spinks.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Councillor Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, I believe that I might have been responsible as to why this matter was put on the table, so happy to lift it now. We went back, we had a look, quite comfortable with it, and happy to move it today.
Very good. Councillor Spinks.
Yes, look, sometimes just a little bit of extra time is needed, and that's okay. So happy to approve it today, and really the most important change being an increase in the CEO's delegation limit in regards to specific items that can be paid for, including the fire services property levy ESBF from 1st July, and things such as insurance and other relevant items. That's the main change and is purely for the sake of the CEO being able to effectively and efficiently manage those sort of recurring items, rather than having to pause and come to council every time. So happy to approve.
Thank you, councillor Spinks. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, none opposed. Councillors, page 34, item 11.1, Goulburn River Trail Exploratory Report. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please?
Yes.
I will move, I'm going to read it out. I'm going to move as a motion that the council, 1, note the Goulburn River Trail Exploratory Study Report, November 2024, as attached. 2, note the preferred trail route outlined in the Goulburn River Trail Exploratory Study Report. 3, release the Goulburn River Exploratory Study Report and update council's website as relevant. And 4, note that should council determine to progress the Goulburn River Trail, the final trail route will be subject to further investigation and will be dependent on the allocation of adequate budget in the 2026, 2027 and 2027-2028 years to A, conduct detailed route investigations and assessments to accurately reflect current site conditions, B, undertake detailed ecological and cultural heritage assessments, C, develop concept plans of the preferred alignment, D, develop a detailed business case, and E, negotiate with Parks Victoria to secure leasing arrangements and resolve the ownership of the existing assets along the Goulburn River Trail.
Thank you, councillor Spinks. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Summer. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, so this is a very exciting project that has been quietly in the background works for quite a long time. So from the executive summary, for the sake of a concise explanation, the Goulburn River Trail is a proposed 46-kilometre multi-use shared pathway proposed to connect Shepparton to Murchison via Mooroopna, Toolamba and Old Toolamba with a 12k link to Tatura. The proposed trail route would closely follow the Goulburn River and be designed to showcase the key attractions of the region, complement existing trails and provide a range of tracks catering to a range of users, rider ages and abilities. So essentially this is what could be described as an epic tourism rail trail, or not rail trail, I guess river trail tourism project that has been in the works with a number of key stakeholders and key interest groups, and this background exploration work has been taking place. So it's been that way for quite a while. It's been, the report has now been done, and what we're doing today is endorsing that report that's been done. We're putting it onto the council website so that it is publicly available for all to see, but that's as far as it's going for the moment. And I just want to be really clear about this. So what would happen from here if it became a endorsed and further considered council project is that then the work would be done in future years to go through those A to E steps that were in the motion. So conducting the investigations, there is a lot of land that needs to be worked through that has different ownership statuses. There needs to be a business case, there needs to be concept plans, there needs to be assessments done. So there's still a lot of work for this to become a formal project that right now it's sitting as a report, and that's what we're accepting today. That's not to say it's not a fantastic idea and that it won't come back at some point for future discussion and future investigation. But for now, today, what we are endorsing is the report itself to be put on public display and to be ready for if in the future council decides to continue down this route. So, not intended. Yeah, exactly. So I'm very, very happy to explore, endorse this report and have it released to the website. And I think it's a very wonderful project, and it's just going to be in time whether there is the financial and resource ability to, to bring it to life. But for now, today, very happy to endorse the report. It's a very, very broad and well considered report. So it's been very well done, and happy to endorse it at this step of the process today.
Spinks, councillor Summer.
Thank you, Ms Ali. As councillor Spinks said, this is a preliminary report that consolidates a bunch of work that's been going on in the background, so we better understand the costs and infrastructure requirements. I'm not under any illusion that it's going to get built tomorrow. It'd be quite a hefty budget allocation, I'd imagine, for 46 kilometres. It's multi-use shared pathway, but what a wonderful connection between Shepparton, Murchison, Mooroopna, Toolamba, Old Toolamba and Tatura. So it's nice to know we're not completely stuck on roads that carry cars, motorbikes, trucks and buses. And we do also remember that we have legs and bicycles. So hopefully eventually down the track, when we're in a better position financially and we can start looking at these nice to haves, we'll be able to make it something magical and get started on building it.
Councillor Summer, any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. Well put, councillor Spinks, in terms of where we're at with this particular report. I think that whilst the establishing a report, it's a considerable investment. We've spoken about that. But there are some challenges that will be to be pursued even further. And they will relate into the land ownership, about the access, the environmental sensitivities, cultural and ecologically, and also they need to be, they all need to be carefully addressed and assessed before we sort of go down that path. I mean, I'm in principle, I'm a huge favour of it. I think it's terrific. You've got Rushworth to Murchison. You could, potentially then have the Murchison to Shepparton, and wouldn't it be great to get Shepparton out to Dookie, where they've got part of a rail trail out there. These are long-term objectives, and there has to be considerable investment to be put into that. And I think it's one of those ones where council alone wouldn't be able to do it down the future. I'm not preempting anything, but you would have to be, I think, in partnership maybe with other government utilities or other governments to be able to bring that to fruition. But it's good where we are at the moment. We know where we're at, and there's a fair way to go though.
Thank you, councillor Brophy. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Page 42, item 11.2, Toolamba and Old Toolamba Draft Structure Plan. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please?
I'm happy to do it.
Good.
Yeah.
Let's move. Sorry.
That council authorise the draft Toolamba Structure Plan 2025 to be put out on public consultation for a period of 6 weeks, commencing on 13th June 2025 and concluding on the 25th of July 2025.
Councillor Akers, can I have a councillor second that motion, please?
Second that, Mayor Sally.
Thank you, councillor Eddy. Councillor Akers, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, pleased to, Mayor Sally. I mean, Toolamba's been identified for potential growth for nearly 2 decades, and so someone out there would suggest it's time we got on with it, but a substantial impetus for this growth was predicated on the proximity of Toolamba to the southern interchange of the proposed Shepparton bypass. There's a bit of history. In 2020, the Toolamba Growth Plan was adopted by council to manage any growth along with a landowner-led precinct structure plan, and the planning scheme amendments to implement these plans were considered by a planning panel. The planning panel, appointed by the Minister for Planning, concluded that the plans were not adequately strategically justified. And so we've addressed these issues by the panel. It was needed, and for Toolamba and Old Toolamba, council sought assistance from the Department of Transport and Planning to undertake the development of this structure plan. Council was successful in securing support and funding through the Department of Transport and Planning Regional Planning Hub program, resulting in Plan 2 Place being appointed as the consultancy to undertake the development of the structure plan. A draft of the structure plan has been prepared for the townships of Toolamba and Old Toolamba collectively referred to here as Talamba. This plan draws on previous work and devises a strategic framework for the future development and design of the towns. A key direction is that any future development will need to be supported by sewerage infrastructure and should be focused on Talamba over Old Talamba. The environmental risks of both flooding and bushfire are also critical considerations in determining any future growth of Talamba. Preliminary information sessions have been held, providing community with the opportunity to put forward any further ideas and comments and to ensure input into the development of Talamba Growth Plan and making sure that wasn't lost. In general, the results mirrored many of the items previously raised, namely allowing support for growth and the need for housing diversity, main sewerage and the additional local services while retaining the natural appeal of the townships. And this is something the community out there has been reiterating with council. Now that the draft plan has been completed, it will be put out for public consultation, and that's what we're proposing here. And comments received will go back to the feedback to the relevant agencies to form preparation of the final structure plan.
Thank you, councillor Akers. Councillor Eddy, would you like to speak to the motion?
I was going to, but it's been well covered by councillor Akers, and I think I'd be wasting everyone's time repeating it.
Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? All those in favour? Motion carried and opposed. Page 49, item 11.3, planning scheme amendment C198, Greater Shep 100 Rhines Road, Dookie. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion?
Happy to move the recommendation, and I'll say as set out on page 49.
Thank you, councillor. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Can I have a second? Councillor Summer. Councillor Akers, would you like to speak to them?
Thanks, Mayor Saley. Look, this should be a really good plan again for Dookie, a combined planning scheme amendment and planning permit. So we've got an amendment and a permit here, has been lodged with council for 100 Rhines Road, Dookie. The planning scheme amendment will rezone the land from farming zone to low density residential zone. The land is identified for future low density residential development within the Greater Shepparton Housing Strategy 2011 of the Greater Shepparton Planning Scheme. The framework plan review of 2009 recommended that this land remained available for future residential development. The planning permit proposes to subdivide the land to create 11 lots. The development will provide lots at a density consistent with the existing fabric and spatial character of the town. Across Greater Shepparton City Council, the number of vacant rural residential lots is comparatively low compared to other regional municipalities in Victoria. The rezoning will provide an allotment size currently not available in Dookie, and it will increase the rural resident lots within the municipality. The rezoning and subdivision will provide a positive impact to Dookie by enabling an increase in the population at a density consistent with the existing character of the town, and something that I'm sure many in the Dookie community are calling for. It's an opportunity to increase population. They would like sewerage, but it's not part of this process.
Very good, councillor Akers. Councillor Summer.
Thank you. Councillor Akers summed it up really well. I'll just add that the amendments required to facilitate the orderly expansion of Dookie in accordance with the findings and recommendations of the Greater Shepparton Housing Strategy 2011. The housing strategy informs and guides decision-making about housing needs and residential growth locations in Shepparton and outlying townships like Dookie. This land is identified as potential low-density residential with a 5 to 10 year development horizon, and is proposed to have 11 lots. So we know housing is in short supply, and we've got some lovely livability out in Dookie, so I do hope that this meets all their needs.
Thank you, councillor Summer. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? For the motion? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried and opposed. Councillors, page 55, 11.4, Economic Accord, Greater Shepparton City Council, Shire Council, Shire Council. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please?
I'm happy to.
Schubert.
The motion is, the recommendation is that council, one, endorse the economic accord between Greater Shepparton City Council, Campaspe Shire Council and Moira Shire Council. Two, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to finalise and execute the economic accord on behalf of Greater Shepparton City Council. Three, support ongoing collaboration and advocacy initiatives outlined in the accord to promote regional economic prosperity.
Thank you, councillor Schubert. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Brophy.
I second that motion.
Councillor Schubert, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Mayor Saley. This accord establishes shared principles and a unified regional approach to economic development with a particular focus on mitigating the impacts of water buybacks and supporting the manufacturing sector. It has been developed in recognition of the shared economic challenges and opportunities across these three councils. That's why I'm prepared to move and endorse the motion, Mayor Saley.
Thank you, councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Saley. Look, some of the issues that we'll be facing the three councils in bringing this accord together would be some critical issues in regards to, as mentioned by councillor Schubert, the economic impact of the water buybacks on regional industries and employment. The need for a unified advocacy approach to attract government funding and private investment, and also ensuring a long-term sustainability of the manufacturing sector, a cornerstone of the local economy. And even though that this is pretty much an umbrella look at it in terms of higher level, they could get down to where we're looking at things like the eradication or control of fruit fly, which controls, the industry in and around the three different shires. It could get down to that level where we're all in an accord to push for funding or for whatever we can do in regards to that. So there'll be great benefits here in sitting down. We do this naturally anyway, but I think this is more a formalised way of going about it.
Very good. Thank you, councillor Brophy. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Against?
Yeah, thank you. It's not against, I'm supportive of it but for the sake of, there's often a lot of debate as we're learning about different topics. And when this did come, I did question whether this was really a relevant document, purely from the perspective of it is normal business for us to work well with our neighbours, and we will have varying aligning interests and priorities with various neighbours at various points in various topics. And so I wasn't sure if a specific accord with two of our neighbours was going to be of any greater benefit than the important work and the good work that we already do. But I am assured that it gives us an alignment of advocacy. I do hope that we don't down the track end up with 8 versions of these with various neighbours about various things. But we of course want to work well with our neighbours of Moira and Campaspe. So I'm not going to vote against it today, but I hope that it does bring a strong alignment for the three councils and that we can come together and achieve some good outcomes brought by the accord. So happy to support this today, but
thank you.
Sharing that.
Spinks, any councillors like to speak for the motion? Councillor Akers.
Yeah, I think it is an important step. I think they're our two neighbours which we have the most in common with, and it'll be good that when we have a shared need, we can work together to look for an outcome and even advocate at times. I know we can do it now, but it's good that we can set some policy boundaries around this going forward as well. And I endorse the work that's been done in this area and encourage us to continue it.
Very good, councillor Akers. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Right, a reply for you, councillor Schubert?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Saley. Look, I'm just reading, endorsing the economic accord will enable Greater Shepparton Council to leverage its collective strengths with partner council, and I see Campaspe and Moira as partner councils, enable us to advocate effectively and deliver tangible economic outcomes to the region, including Moira and Campaspe.
Get you across the line. Councillors will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Oh, there we go. Good. Item 12, documents for signing and sealing nil received. Page 59. Item 13.1, council activities, April 2025. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please? Oh, Never have guessed. Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. So the council will receive and note the summary of the council's community interactions and informal meetings of councillors.
Thank you, councillor Brophy. Councillor, second that motion, please. Councillor Spinks.
Second that motion.
Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sarley, I will. Just mention a couple of things. Of course, the Shepparton Festival was on last month. Well done to the organisers for that. Also, the Fairley Foundation, the 60th anniversary, there was a particular celebration held here at La Trobe University here in Shepparton, but also down at Government House as well, for a number of people who've had a lot to do with the Sir Andrew Fairley Foundation over the 60 years. So congratulations to that particular foundation. It's put a lot of money and effort into this particular region. Can I also mention well done to the BMX track and cycling, the precinct, which was not only open, but we also had the BMX championships there, and it was crowds of literally thousands turned up for that. It's a great draw card, and according to those in the know, that the BMX track here is arguably one of the best in Australia, if not around the world. So we really are at the forefront of some competitions that will come back here as well. On the start of Reconciliation Week, which starts today, last month we had the 17th annual Unity Cup, which is held between Rumballara and Kingupna, and that's been held, as I said, for nearly 2 decades, and that is reconciliation in itself, where the two clubs come together, they have the walk across the oval, and it's just a fantastic atmosphere to be there and to be involved with that as well. Also, nothing like celebrating a birthday under the stars out at Deakin Reserve, and congratulations to Jim Gow and the Salvation Army, who had that at Deakin Reserve under the stars there, where people could camp out for the night and get a bit of an understanding and information in regards to what homelessness is like. By no means would it replicate what it would be like to be homeless, but it gave an indication. There was more of an awareness and information session throughout that particular evening, and it's one that I'll certainly remember. And congratulations to the the Shepparton Pickleball Association for their first birthday celebration.
Good. Thank you, councillor Brophy. Councillor Spinks.
No, thank you.
Good. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? For the motion?
Yes, if I may, just one brief comment, if I could please. I think one of the most exciting events that many of us attended was the GB Link Enterprise Park sod turning. It's only taken 22 years to get to that, so I think that was a very, very good sort of place to be. So, yeah.
Councillor Schubert. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Yeah.
I might just mention the different format this month. It's consolidated. You might be used to seeing all our names underneath each event, but this is just to simplify it for anyone reading and for anyone putting it together, because it was often a scramble just before the meeting to try and figure out if it was all 100% correct. So collectively, we've done all of that. And as I keep saying, these events, even the ones you wouldn't expect to get anything out of, you go and it just opens up the community to you, and you learn new things and you meet new people and just get a better idea in our community and how privileged we are as councillors to have that opportunity.
Councillor. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? No? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried and opposed. Councillors, page 62, item 14, notice of motion, amendment or rescission nil received. Item 15. Included on the agenda. Is there any urgent business that's arisen since the finalisation of the agenda?
Yes, I have a matter I wish to raise, please, Mayor Sully.
Thank you, councillor Schubert. What is, can it wait actually to be held over?
No, it can't. It's something that's I believe, fairly urgent. I'd like to raise it today.
Do you mind just giving some detail of it? Just a small snapshot, and then we'll need a mover and a seconder to have that tabled for formal consideration. So if you just give us a brief overview of what you're wanting to table.
Thank you, Mayor Sully. The council note we have received from MAV today, we received advice from Maddox Lawyers indicating we are legally required to collect the Emergency Services and Volunteers Fund, brackets ESV. We are required to collect those funds.
Look, I can accept that obviously means some urgency. So councillors, what we'll need now is a mover and a seconder to accept that particular business to be added for a formal motion to be tabled. Can I have someone move that?
I'll move
Councillor
that,
Summer,
that it be accepted and tabled.
accepted. Councillor, and second that motion. Second, Councillor Eddy. Councillors, all those in favour? Okay, that is carried. Councillor Schubert, I'll get you to now read out what your motion is to be formally tabled and considered.
Okay. 1, councils are legally required to collect emergency service and volunteer fund, the brackets ESVF. 2, if a ratepayer pays less than the total amount of council rates and the ESVF levy, council must proportionally allocate the payment to include a portion for the levy. 3, councils cannot issue a separate rate notice for the ESVF. It must be included in the annual valuation rate and charge notice. 4, Greater Shepparton Council acknowledges its legal obligation to comply. However, it strongly objects to the imposition of this responsibility, which shifts a state taxation burden onto local government operations and potentially impacts the relationship between council and our community.
Thank you, Councillor Schubert. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please?
Second that, Mayor Sally.
Ready. Thank you. Councillor Schubert, would you like to speak to your motion?
It's somewhat self-explanatory, but there's major concerns certainly from my perspective, and that's why I've raised it, that we are, I suppose the blunt way of putting it, we are now the tax collectors for the state government, which I'm absolutely against, and I believe that we as the Greater Shepparton City Council need to write to the relevant state government authorities expressing our view. While we understand what the legal requirements are, we need to express our view, and I think that's encapsulated in point 4. It strongly objects to the imposition of this responsibility, which shifts a state taxation burden onto local government operations and potentially impacts the relationship between council and our community. The SVF is going to be included in the council rates notice. It'll have Greater Shepparton City Council on the rates notice. I'm concerned that our ratepayers will think it's a Greater Shepparton City Council charge, not a state government charge. That's why I believe we need to write to the relevant authorities, state government, Mayor Sally.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Schubert. Councillor Eddy, would you like to speak to the motion?
I'll just echo Councillor Schubert's comments, Mayor Sally, and add that this has put us in a extremely uncomfortable position.
Councillor Eddy, are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Councillor Brookie.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. Thank you, Councillor Schubert, for putting this forward. I'd like to just speak in broader terms that it's not just our council that has been very disappointed by this chain of reaction from the state government that has been put through, but of course across all of the councils across Victoria. So much so that as a delegate I was at the State Council for the Municipal Associations of Victoria only a week and a half ago, and that very night before, in the early hours or very early hours of the morning, that particular piece of legislation was passed. As such, the councils got together collectively and put forward a resolution, which I may read out part of, which was that the MAV expresses the local government sector's disappointment with the state government's approach to levy collection and implementation of the Emergency Services and Volunteers Fund, and opposes the local government being the collector on behalf of the state government, and calls on the Victorian government that if local government is to administer the fund, then a number of things should follow. One would be in ensuring an equitable funding model. Another one would be adequately administration funding for the local government to manage the cost of administering the fund. That the Victorian government to undertake a community engagement directly with the communities, to improve transparency and communication, to ensure that equitable fund is actually distributed, and that really transferring the levy collection really should go back to the state, and that the State Revenue Office should be the appropriate authority in collecting that particular levy. So that was passed as a recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Akers.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Saley. Yes, I'd like to endorse the motion. I mean, there's many in our community been moved to protest that the introduction of this levy, but the legal advice we've got today, which says that, you know, we've got no alternative much other than to put it out there as a tax from this council, which is not true, is inappropriate, but something that legally we have to do. And I think it's important that we continue to express our disappointment to the state government as to the way they've handled this, and certainly let those community members know within Greater Shepparton that have been very much opposed to it, and publicly that we support them.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Akers. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Spinks.
Thank you, yes. Very much in support of my fellow councillors' comments until now, before me. We have watched over the past few weeks and have in solidarity been firmly against the introduction of a new tax on the farmers, but also all ratepayers. We're in a cost of living crisis. It has been mind-boggling to see, but council has up to this point done everything they can to advocate and speak up through our channels available. But today, having received the legal advice of how this is now going to impact on council having to play out this tax to the community, and having the knowledge that we cannot separate our rate notices to make it clear, we cannot separate the payments, and that a portion will be taken regardless of whether a full amount or partial amount will move. This is emerging information, and I support Councillor Schubert bringing it to the table to be publicly shared with the community. I think that this particular issue, not only of the tax, but the way that it's playing out and the burden that it is putting onto council and ratepayers, needs to be shared and needs to be publicly spoken about. So I'm very supportive of that. This has been brought to the table. We have to make sure that now that so much of the burden will sit with local government, that it doesn't further impact through the way that we collect it, and the possible risk of possible payments not being made and that impacting council's bottom line. There's a lot to play out here, and so I think being able to bring this to the public forum is important. So supportive of this today.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion?
Just one point additional point I'd like to make. Thanks.
Sorry, Howard.
I've had.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is. Yeah, sorry. Okay. Just if there's any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion, yeah.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'd also like to say that I'm very proud of the community for standing up against this tax. And obviously, as a council, we want to do everything we can to support people. Times are tough, and this will see millions of dollars leave our community with very little in return. Lots of people have called this a metrocentric tax, which is hard to dispute. But unfortunately, states have buffered themselves against the risk of non-payment by shifting the collection onto local councils. And if the advice read out in the motion from MAV is correct, we are bound to passing on the payment in full, regardless of whether or not people pay. So any non-payment will impact our bottom line. It's quite rapid legislation that went through quite quickly, so there was very little time to prepare, and unfortunately time to educate, time to push back. It was steamrolled through. So any non-payment won't be hurting the decision makers who are imposing this tax, but it will impact on local government's capacity to deliver local services and local products. So like I said, we're wanting to help in any way, shape or form. Everybody's impacted by this. Nobody's happy about it, but not paying that portion of the levy will simply impact a council that had nothing to do with the decision.
Thank you, Councillor Summer. So it's really clear that Regional Cities Victoria, Municipal Association of Victoria, Rural Councils of Victoria, 79 local governments plus Greater Shepparton makes every single local government organisation fully rebut this additional tax. But where it is a concern that hasn't really been detailed and support hasn't come our way is the significant resource burden it will have on our organisation if community choose to object to this. That's where it becomes a real issue for Greater Shepparton City Council. There is obviously the financial component, but it's the resource component of undertaking collection processes if people choose to short pay that. We are 100% against this, and we've shared our concerns, and the latest advice that has come today, which was on the back of it being recently legislated, effectively reaffirms probably what we knew, that there was going to be limited room for local government to determine or separate whether we include this on our formal rates notice or not. Quite frankly, this is over $4 million being ripped out of Greater Shepparton. And from a regional city's perspective, it's over $60 million being ripped out of. I think you said it around the city aspect, and I've said this, we literally feed the nation, and for that, we get a $4 million invoice every year. So, well done on putting this to the table. I think it's really clear where we sit, and we'll continue to inform our community, but we acknowledge that this is a state government imposed tax, not a Greater Shepparton City Council imposed tax, and we'll do our best to communicate and support our community through this cost burden that they will be facing. So if there's nothing else, councillors, we'll go to the vote on that particular additional urgent business item. All in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Item 16, close of meeting at 4:01 PM.